Okay. I want everyone to kindly switch on your videos. You may be a comfortable girl like me, it's also absolutely fine. But try to switch on your video if you have all possibilities because then we can see your smiling faces and we can assure that we are not making you sleep today. Obviously not, because there is someone special today. Do you know, I want to discuss something with you. Is there a method to madness in crafting and delivering a winning speech? Once you focus on the process, acing the ISC is not a question of if, but only when. Over the past 4 years as a Toastmaster, our trainer has lost at club level, area level, division level, before finally acing the international speech contest as a district 126 champion in 2023. Today, he brings you the lessons he learned, the process he built and mastered in his journey to become the champion. So let's not wait further and invite on the stage Rahul Jain to help you ace the international speech contest. The stage is all yours, Toastmaster Rahul Jain.
Thank you, distinguished Toastmaster Vamsi, for that warm welcome, and distinguished Toastmaster Vikram for considering me capable enough to hold this session as an invite for acing the ISC. I'm not sure, like I mentioned, I've lost it many times, I've failed many times and succeeded once, all the way to the district level. I would say I've had more failures than the ones which I've won. But one thing that I've always learned in my life is that every failure has helped me observe why I failed and why someone won. And possibly today, what I share with you is with humility of all the lessons that I've learned from the great speakers that I have been with on the same stage, sometimes lost, sometimes won, and even after winning, considering others to be winners of what they delivered. And it's just the judges that found me capable enough of winning that battle. But there was learning from every battle that I have had contested in Toastmasters. Before I move forward, let me just share my screen and let me please confirm with me if it is clearly visible and I am still okay with the screen. Am I all visible to you on the screen? Perfect. Thank you,
Yes, Rahul, perfect.
Mayuri and Vikram for and Vamsi for confirming that. Today's session titled Acing the ISC by someone who has aced it only once in the recent past, and that's the reason I've been invited, I believe. And let me still take you through the journey of what I've gone through and how I went about the process through which I learned and mastered this process. Before I move forward, I would request all of you all, I'm not able to see the gallery view because I'm in this presentation mode. I can see only a few handful of people who are there at the top of my screen. In case there's any raise of hand, please, Vamsi, please help me in unmuting them or getting me to recognize that there's something which is going on, which is awkward or needs my attention. The basic ground rules that I would expect from the session: please switch on your videos. It's always good to engage with faces, seeing what you are going through while I'm sharing, and accordingly make adjustments to what I can do better or how I can continue to going the show. Use emojis wherever you feel appropriate to confirm or to assure me that I am in the right track or you're getting what I'm saying. Please use the chat option. I have another phone with me where I'm using the chat option to see the chat. And finally, use the raise hand option where Vamsi will be helping you to unmute and ask the questions wherever it is required from your end. With that, let's move forward. Before I get into what is it that I have to share for acing the international speech contest, I would like to ask you all, why are you here? What's your ask? If you can think of one specific question, other than obviously acing and winning the international speech contest, if you have any specific question, please use the chat right now to share with me that this is what I'm specifically looking for as an answer at the end of this session, apart from the other things which I'll be sharing. This will help me in understanding if I've covered them, and if by the end of the session, if I've still not covered them, please feel free to ask again in the Q&A segment. So I'm waiting for the questions in the chat option right now. Anything specific that you're looking for? Okay. Yeah. Interesting. You can send it to everyone. Please don't send it just to me so that everyone is aware of, okay, this question is already asked or something like that. Okay. I've got 3-4 responses on my personal chat though. Interesting. A few of them is already something that I have in mind to what I'll be covering. So let's move forward then. The basic agenda for the session today, the contest basics, the end-to-end journey of where I began or how you all can begin from an idea to the delivery and winning the international speech contest. Debriefing about the international speech contest ballot, which is the core area of how something where you are, if you're intending to win a contest, it's not a generic kind of contest where everyone has their own ways of judging you or looking at how impressive your speech was. There's a judging ballot which is used. My secret sauce of last year's victory, when I won that contest, there was something, two elements which I took through those 2 days of that event of Jubileence 2023, which helped me in keeping me grounded and delivering on what I thought and how I went about winning. I'll be sharing that towards the end, then I'll be opening it for the Q&A. Moving forward, the contest basics. For the first timers who are intending to attend or intending to participate in this year's contest, the basic requirement is completion of level 2 or being a DTM in the earlier path, in the earlier manual, where for you to be eligible to contest in international speech contest is this, or you can be a charter member of a club which is less than 1 year old, or and also you have to be, and your club has to be in a good standing. It's a standard speech of 5 to 7 minutes that every international speech contestant delivers, and the judging is done by the judges who are secret, whom you all don't know who's judging, but they have been trained and they are following a standard pattern of a standardized metric through which they'll be assessing and judging the speeches, with which everyone can be assessed or competing on the same idea of the metrics that are being compared. Please note, international speech contest is the only contest which goes all the way to the international level, moving from the club level, area level, division level, district level, regionals, and then all the way to the international world championship of public speaking semifinals and the finals. This year, it's even more special because it's a 100th year of Toastmasters, which is being celebrated, and being a part of this and going ahead with representing district 126 or whichever district that you're representing and winning it there and moving it forward to that level will be iconic, because you will be becoming a part of history of an event with itself is historic in nature. So let's start with one of the questions that I've already got. What is the toughest part of preparing or delivering an international speech contest? You can just unmute and speak, or you can just use the chat option and put it in the chat. What is the toughest part?
Finding the topic, I guess. What to choose.
What to choose? Anyone else? Anyone else? What is the toughest part of any journey? If you're not looking at it as on a philosophical note, what is the toughest part of a journey?
Drafting a
Saying
speech
yes to the
drafting a speech, someone was saying?
in a such a way that you deliver what you intend to deliver. Sometimes it happens you want to deliver, but it doesn't come across the way you write. So it comes to drafting a skills for me as well.
Interesting. Dinesh?
Yeah, delivering in an effective way or reachable way.
Delivering in an effective way or reachable way. Okay. Mayuri, go ahead.
Finding a topic which is not too cliched or stereotypical or being used by so many others. Finding a topic which is a little different.
Interesting. I come across this very point very often. That's the first jitters that people face when they decide that I want to compete in the international speech contest is the topic. What do I choose? How will my topic be so unique that it stands out from everyone else's topic or the choices of ideas that people have wanted to share? And invariably speaking, each one of us today, if you go ahead with delivering whatever you think as the most unique topic, go to YouTube, go to TED, go to Toastmasters platform. That speech, that idea has already been delivered. It's already been delivered. Please note, we are in Toastmasters competing for the public speaking contest and not an idea contest. It's not a Shark Tank where it is the idea whose worth is being assessed. It is the public speaking skill. That's the reason it's called World Championship of Public Speaking, International Speech Contest. So it's not the idea alone which makes the entire difference. We want to be unique. I don't deny that. But the idea is, most often in the contest, the speeches are not informative speeches or theoretical speeches, because that does not persuade the judges to think about your idea being compelling. It can be creative, but most often the type of speeches which are there in contests are persuasive or inspirational. One important consideration that you need to have is, with regard to the audience whom you're speaking to is generic and you do not know who it is. And so the choice of topic, whatever you're choosing, has to have something which has a wider connect. So as an example, there were topics which I've heard, not in the contest per se, but talking about childhood memory, or talking about solving India's education crisis, or how to age in a graceful way from 60 to 80. These are good topics, no denying them. But the fact is, when you are addressing a wider audience which has a mix and you are not aware of specific demographics of the audience, you have to choose a topic which has a wider connect. The wider the connect, the deeper is the possibility of your speech connecting with the judges also, because judges are a part of the audience itself. Now comes the important point. It is not the idea that you're choosing. It is not the topic that you're choosing. Possibly, like Mayuri mentioned, cliched idea. My topic for this year's the topic that I won was special days. Live today. Every day is special. How many times have you heard it? And yet, that went on to win. The reason is, it's not the topic that has to be unique. It is a narrative that you're creating out of that topic that has to be unique. So the choice of your topic, when you're thinking about it, look at something that is close to you, to your heart. A message, a philosophy, an idea which you believe in, because at the end of it, you can create a narrative out of something which is only close to you. Else, it will fall flat thinking on the jazzy part of the idea or something which is unique or different. The more you think of it as a different idea, there's a high likelihood that you'll have to explain the topic, which in itself can become the challenge. So if you look at some of the world championship speeches which are won, just to give you a few examples which I've written, Jocelyn, the lady who won this year, the topic was about the dilemma of choices and using growth mindset. Have you been there? Nisha, the first runner-up in the topic, power of kindness. A simple incident of how one old lady tagged along her. And that was how the idea of kindness, of what you're giving back, was used. Anjani, Cyril Jr., the idea of embracing who you are as an individual. Mohammad Katani, words are powerful. Such a cliched topic is what I can think of it. You are giving a lecture on communication. The importance of communication is what I can think of. But it is not the idea in itself that makes a difference. It is a narrative that you're creating and how you're packaging that idea that makes the connect with the audience. I've had so many people coming up to me and telling that, I know this, but the way you have struck the chord with me about realizing what I know is what made the entire difference. So please note, the choice of topic, choose something which is close to your heart, something that you believe in, and move forward with it. Rather than trying to ponder and waste time on finding a unique idea, it's the unique narrative that you need to create. Keep the idea simple and choose from everyday moments. You'll see whatever speeches are won, they are about everyday moments that have clicked and connected and put across the message. Having said that, what's the toughest part of speech writing? You've got the idea now. You've got the topic now. How many times have you come across a situation? Yes, Ekta, go ahead. Ekta?
I thought you were asking a question
Yeah.
about
So yeah, what do you feel is the toughest part of a contest
the
speech?
narration, bringing the narration to a better flow.
Improvisation, you're saying you're working on the further draft. Okay, interesting. Sabiha?
People generally say a rule of 3 words. We should give 3 examples. Then how to choose 3 stories out of those everyday examples? That is difficult.
Interesting. Thank you. Mayuri?
Perhaps what is it that I want my audience to ultimately remember from my speech? For me, that is really important.
Interesting. I'm coming to that next. That brings me to the next point. I've had instances where I've chosen the topic, and I've had instances of sitting in front of a paper at the end of 4 hours, 6 hours, 2 days, a week. I'm still glaring at a blank paper, not knowing where do I begin? Where do I start? And that's where I'm not going to cover the entire idea here, but there's something which I've used or built called as a 9-stick framework. The first step to any beginning process where you're starting to write or drafting a speech is to ask one question. Like Mayuri said, what is it that I want my audience to leave with? Begin with the end in mind. What is the goal? And here it's not about explanation. Come to that one line that you want to accomplish at the end of your speech. One line speech purpose. Before that, don't get into anything. Don't get into any drafting, any story, any example, any opening, closing that you have got struck to before having a clarity on the one line purpose that you want to accomplish with this speech. Because that line becomes the anchor. That line becomes the lighthouse to guide you to the entire process of the speech, of writing that speech. What is valid, what is important, what is not, what is priority is all a judgment based on this anchor that you'll be using. So one suggestion that I always give to people when they're drafting a speech is write that one line that you have decided that you want the audience to take away or move, or the idea that you want to put across at the end of your speech. That's where it begins. And then, like you all said, for this story, collect the substance from your own experiences, from your everyday moments. What adds to or what justifies this end? What is a statistic? What is a logic? What is an emotion that adds to this speech purpose? They say there are only 3 techniques of influence. Aristotle's 3 techniques: ethos, legos, and pathos. I often try to use each of these in one into my speeches. One using, because everyone in your audience has a different way of persuasion and what will persuade them. And so what I use is, one is something where I use my credibility or my experience, solid experience, which justifies or showcases this purpose or the challenge that I've experienced. Then use an emotion, the feeling part of it, where I have experiences or found a resolution in, and then use something called as the pathos, the logic to how you are able to solve it. And that's where I use stories. I build a repository from the research you call, or the stories or anecdotes or whatever you want to call. Bring in those things. You could have 10 of them to begin with, but then use the anchor, use the purpose, speech purpose line to boil down to 3. It is often said the power of 3 works because the human mind processes in multiples of 3, and that's where they often tell use the power of 3 and get 3 elements into your speech. If it's a storyline, build elements where you're showing the setup or the context, show the gravity of the problem, and show the resolution of it. So there are different styles in which you can build your content within the speech. Having said that, have the broad pointers and build the depth of those things. Then you move forward with, I've come across this interesting activity or a page on Facebook wherein the between words are jumbled and only the first letter and the last letter of that entire paragraph is in the right space. And yet the human mind has a capacity to process it. When you have the first letter of a word and the last letter of a word in its right place and between parts jumbled, you can still process it. And that's where opening and closing of your speech become very important. Once you have got the substance of it, have a concrete idea to how this substance, these pointers are leading to your speech purpose. Because ultimately that is the final nail that you hit, and that creates a recency effect of what is going to stay in the minds of people. And even better if you can connect that with the opening. As an example, for my speech about specialties which I delivered, my speech opening was about 3 weeks ago, we celebrated Mother's Day. Raise your hand if you made your mother feel special. That was about the special days. Then I got into the content of 3 stories of how I realized the importance of having every day as special. And the closing was contextual again, because 2 weeks after Jubileance was Father's Day. Showcased, set it up where I got the audience into the speech of what I wanted to prove, delivered the ideas, and then the closing came in where, with a rhetorical question, asking the audience, are you going to still wait for Father's Day or are you going to celebrate it now? Look at how the stories and the opening hooks the audience and the closing leaves the audience with a lingering thought. And actually, because I had contextualized the entire speech with the day in mind, I had on the Father's Day a message from many people that today's Father's Day, and actually I didn't wait for it. And that is the impact that you can create with the recency effect and these elements that you plant based on the awareness that you have. And the basic things of transition, the time that you have and the title that you give. Title also, many a times we often think the last thing, even before the contest day or the speech, most often does happen in the clubs. People don't even give a title and they're randomly just called in with something. But often I feel your speech doesn't begin with your first utterance of the word. It begins with the title. In my humorous speech, I used the idea of pause, which was my speech. The speech title was pause. And so when the contest chair announced the title, Toastmaster Rahul, pause, Toastmaster Rahul. I actually paused and took a moment to ask, can I actually start now? And that turns into a hilarious moment. That brings in the humor. That brings in the idea of what I want to introduce in my speech, even before my speech is starting. So understand how you're working on the finer details of the speech. So there are different examples I have here to share, but I'll go and we'll talk further about this. This is about the crafting of the speech. Let me ask you again, what is the toughest part of the international speech contest? Anyone? What is the toughest part of contesting or delivering a speech? Sabia?
Keeping your audience focused with the story.
Feel the emotions you felt.
Interesting. Sneha, was it Sabia or Sneha?
Sneha.
Okay. Sabia, what was your point? I'm sorry.
I said keeping hooked with, keeping the story hooked with the audience.
Everyone has the ability to find out stories, get the transitions, get these pieces of the puzzle together, the content, organization, structuring. But what really creates magic in the speech is what I call the music in the speech. It is more often than not, the speeches which have a deeper connect with the audience are the ones that win. And this connect is not incidental. It is consciously planted with multiple strategies that you can have to create a deeper connect with your audience. How many times have you sat in a audience and heard to a speech and where you're thinking, okay, itna gyan, itna sochne ko raha hai. So there are speeches which are consumption speeches, where it is not about what you are thinking. You are not a part of the speech. You're not engaged in the speech. They are just information overload which is being coming to you. And then these speeches die down, even if with impressive delivery or impressive structuring or creativity. They die down because of lack of your involvement. They say great speeches with regard to the music of the speech works when you have the ability to bring the audience into your speech. What element can you plant wherein the audience can feel connected that you are speaking to me? Is a question. As an example, I've shared a few strategies over here where you look at Insta Reels. Many times it happens that you're moving from one story to another, another story to another, another story to another. At the end of the 5th or the 6th story, you don't remember the first one because there are ideas over there, but you're not taken a moment to go deeper and build the depth of that story. This is often called milking the moment. what stays with us is not just the information that has been provided, but how deeply you have created a connect of that detail in that moment, which stays with us. You talk of Dhananjay Hirachi's speech or Mohammad Katani's speech or whatever speech that you think is the best speech, you will be able to observe that it is a speech which talked about the depth and the detail of that one moment. You'll be thinking at the end of a 7-minute speech, okay, it was like a movie which happened, and I can sense that I was a part of that story. I was sitting right there and observing all the details that were happening. It is the depth that you create in that moment that makes a difference rather than the multiple stories that you're just going about sharing. There are waves in the movie. You often see singing, music. If it is like this, you'll be off. Music is something that you are glued to because of the waves. And here I'm not just talking of the vocal variety. I'm talking of the emotional waves, the moments where you're creating a suspense, you're creating an interest, and you're getting people into your story with the waves. In my special day speech, I had this instance where suddenly, after a grave situation about my father being in ICU and I learning about whether he'll be there or not and all those things, there came the twist of how I brought in the humor part of how I'm dealing it with now. So what happens is that suddenly there's a click in the audience to stay connected and stay tuned with you. Otherwise, there's a high likelihood of the momentum going in a way where you can lose the audience. Rhetorical questions. Let me ask you a simple thing. I had this instance in the speech where after I'd shared an instance with my mom, rather than moving on to the next story, I brought in the audience into my story by asking, are you anything like who I was in 2018? Based on the story, if you don't relate to it, based on what I had shared, it was not just about me sharing a story to you for consumption, but also helping you reflect on what your story is when it comes to the context I'm providing. And that is where the depth works and the connection happens with the story. We can have something called the wordplay. So in the speech at the end, the closing lines which I used as a punchline were one of the instances which I had. One second, I'll just get to the exact words. It's a crime to have love unexpressed, gratitude untold, and gifts undelivered. They are word plays which create a deeper connect with the audience for you. So these are elements. Anchor line, as an example, I've seen speeches. How many of you all remember the speeches about, what do we say? I see something in you, but I don't know what it is. That was an anchor line which was created. I had one of my speeches which I said, I don't know. It was a speech on mentoring. And that was a consistent line which I used because the theme of my speech was, as a mentor, I'm not the one who's going to give you answers. I'm the one who's going to guide you towards your answers. And the three stories had this anchor line used consistently at the end of every story. The question came to me and the answer that I gave was, I don't know. You tell me. So look at how you are able to use the wordplay or the anchor lines or add elements about music or humor, the waves that you can create in your speech, which can add to the depth of it. Then comes the most important part. Again, I would not say most important part, but in normal parlance, it is often said the 93 factor. It is not what you say. Now you might think, we have spoken for almost 25 minutes and you say all that was for nothing. In the communication parlance, it is called 7%, only 7% of the words that you're using contribute to the effectiveness of your communication. The remaining 93% is 55% is body language and 35% or 33% is vocal variety. It is not what you say. It is how you say. So all the hard work that you have done till now is one part of the story. But I'll come to the different element over here because once you go to the ballot, you will not see that it's not 93%. It's not just the showmanship that wins the contest. It is also this part, which is almost 50%. We'll come to the ballot later. But the factor is here, when it comes to delivery, We all have our natural behavior patterns in the way we speak, in the way we walk, in the way we talk, in the way your volume is, in the pitch that you have. We all have our natural behavior patterns, even in these elements, in the way we deliver or come across or how we present our speeches. Here, I would just want you all to recognize what is it that you have in the way you deliver your speeches that are distractors or which is taking away from your speech, and some things which are neutral and some things which are enhancers or your strengths in your speeches. The more you observe the way you operate, you will be conscious about correcting the distractors or limiting the distractors and using your strengths for the enhancers. So as an example, somebody could have a normal tendency of the way they stand, the posture that they have. The way they stand, the posture that they have could be could be leaning towards one leg, or the gestures that they have could be distracting, or the expressions that they have could be irritating or always frustrated kind of a thing. Here, why I say this is because not that something is good or bad, but the point is I had this experience before my contest where while I was delivering a speech and I had to talk about the gravity of the issue that my father was in ICU and I was devastated and feeling sad, what came as a backfiring to me was my natural tendency to have a smile on my face. So while I was delivering a speech and I was talking about my father being in ICU, I was smiling. And that was a feedback given to me a month before the Jubileence event. And I wasn't aware of it. That was a blind spot that I had of a natural inclination that I have of what my behavior pattern is. And so for the speech, I had to be conscious enough to understand that at this point in time, when I'm talking of ICU and a subtle situation about a delicate moment in my life, I had to show that seriousness. I had to show that fear. If your father was in ICU, how would you feel? And I had to showcase that on the stage there. And that is where I had to move away from a natural tendency or natural behavior pattern to what is needed for that speech, for that moment. So look at how you are able to analyze the natural tendencies that you have of how you do things to what is appropriate for the speech. Because there will be moments in speech which will be humorous. There will be moments which will be kind of the emotionally drained moments or the happy moments. You will have to exhibit what it stands for there, rather than your natural pattern being in play and what you're doing. So look at how your body language, your appearance. So maybe I had this challenge before my contest. Because I have a habit of wearing a round neck with a coat. I was doubting whether that will look professional or not. Is that appropriate or not? What should be the dressing that I should be having? But then my mentor and a very close friend of mine told that what you're comfortable in and what is appropriate based on your judgment of in front of 700 audience, what will you be doing? How do you want to present? And then I came across the speech of 2019 champion wearing a sherwani on stage and delivering a speech. And I had someone, a world champion, wearing underwear and delivering an entire speech. I had another champion wearing two different shoes and delivering a speech, because that was the purpose of his speech. So again, the point is purposeful. What serves best to your speech? Is it purposeful or not? Is what you have to make a choice and go ahead with that choice. You have to make that conscious attempt to understand if every movement, every vocal variety, every change in your voice, every movement of your body on the stage, does it add or does it take away from your speech? You will have to have that calculated assessment, more so with your natural behavior patterns. Once you're able to plan that, you'll be able to move forward accordingly. Moving forward, this is a part where a lot of us miss out, because a large part of the entire idea generation, crafting a speech, and the delivery part of it is a world that we live in. But a speech is delivered for an impact, and an impact is from the receiver's end of what they feel. How did they come across the message? And so this process of practicing the speech wherever you get an opportunity of delivering that speech and taking a feedback. For my Jubilant speech, I had traveled for 2 months. I delivered that same speech 8 times across audiences who know me, who don't know me, virtual, and people with seasoned Toastmasters, people where there was a mix of audience of around 20 age and 60 age also, to get an understanding and a grip of how is it that this speech is being perceived. Because that is where this idea which I told you, that my smile was coming through when I was talking of ICU, came from the Bangalore Toastmasters. One of the seasoned Toastmasters who has been a Toastmaster for 20 years, he gave me that feedback. And it is something magical that I felt at that point in time, I did not even realize. And that is a space, that is a feedback which helps us in assessing the flow of the speech, the content of the speech, the delivery that you have, what is missing, what is the insight that someone can add to it. So these are all things which you do as you practice in the process, you get a lot of feedback. Again, not every feedback is appropriate. It is a subjective call of you and your mentor and the closer of people who know what is it that you want to stand up on the stage for. And the final idea of this impact assessment is there are 3 versions of every communication. One that you thought of, the draft that you have, one that you thought you delivered, and the final one of what you as an audience thought of what I delivered. The superpower in becoming the champion of public speaking is a sync between the 3 of these versions. You cannot be 100% certain, but a large amount of percentage of sync between these 3 versions is where your mastery lies. Because ultimately there could be subjective elements about the artistic parts of what you're choosing and what you're not. But ultimately, if you're thinking what you are wanting to deliver and the impact being in sync with that is a superpower that each one of us need to cultivate in public speaking. Moving forward, now comes the important part where the 93 factor doesn't work, is what I said, because you are being judged by the judges based on a standard template of elements on which you are being marked. So unlike the normal places where you could be inspired by a Sadhguru or a Sudhamurti who has a lot of ahs and ums, or someone who has a lot of humor only without the content, you could be coming across a lot of those things where you wonder, this is so impactful, but yet he doesn't have any body language. He doesn't have any stage movement or purposeful stage management. And yet you feel inspired. There are instances where you might have felt, I felt this person did not deserve to win. This was a person that deserved to win. Taking away the subjective element of judging, if you wish to win, focus on this. Focus on what elements of your speech do you feel are you contributing to the thinker, the judge, or what are you giving him as a content to give you a better marking in each of this individually. Are you showcasing a structure which is compelling enough to show it to me that this is the opening, this is the body, and this is the closing? Are you giving compelling stories which have been narrated with the details and closing of the loops and elements which make him believe that this was something which was thought out rather than just like an impromptu speech? So in the delivery part of it, are you showing him where you're using the stage management with your 3 parts of the speech being delivered at different places? The movement forward, backward, hand gestures, all those things. When you plant and prepare your speech with that detail, you will be able to see where is it that I am missing out on these marks based on the detail which has been given. Please note, I'll be sharing, you all can access the ISC ballot, which is available on the internet. And the detail, this is just the pointer. The second page of the IC ballot, the judges ballot, you have the detailed explanation of what this means. That is for the judges. But as a participant, get into the mind of the judges to see what they'll be thinking and how they will be assessing your speech. There will be subjective element always. There will be biases which they are trained for, but still unconscious biases with regard to a topic, with regard to a personality, with regard to their preferences, with regard to their awareness. There will be biases. Every year after, Mayuri would agree with me, every year after the World Championship of Public Speaking, there will be one list of the people's winners and one list of who the judges decided as the winners. Because it's subjective. What you might like and what someone else might like what your assessment of a good body language and what your assessment of a dramatic body language would be different. But the point is, these are judging parameters. So please look at them and accordingly look at preparation of your speech based on how you will be getting your marks, what are your strengths, and what are you willing to let go. So I'm not going into the detail of this. Moving forward, that brings me to the secret sauce of what helped me personally within my own world, to keep my sanity while contesting in 4 different contests in Jubileans and going ahead with winning. I'm not getting into the judge's mind, but this is what I personally felt and thought out before getting onto the stage when I went on to win that contest. First and foremost, you could have all the parts of the speech perfectly placed. Great opening, great stories, great closing. But somewhere people don't just see you, they can see through you. And that's where the soul of your speech has to be there, present to make an impact. I've come across so many performances where at the end of it, I still have to doubt. I'm not finding the authenticity of it. When you see a picture perfect story, trust me, it is a made up story. It is a flaws in the story where you show your vulnerabilities, where you show yourself, and those vulnerabilities presented in a perfect way is what makes you win. So I focused on what I believed in. I had my heart on the stage, and that is how I delivered it. I did the preparation, all the work with regard to all the things that I shared with you right now. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I had a message. I had myself on stage there. And the second point is about speak for impact. I had good 2 days. It could be anyone's days. I do not assess what I am worth or what my value is based on the result that happened as a result of maybe 11 judges who were there. But the point is, speak for impact. The results or the winning is just a bonus that you'll be getting. What I went on to that stage was with the idea that I have 700 people in front of me and I have a message that I want to share. And that is what I went on to that stage and delivered. And I'm not saying I didn't hope for winning. I did the preparation for it. But even if it wasn't the case, I would have been happy and proud of myself for what I delivered. And always an opportunity to learn further about public speaking and how you can further refine or further develop as a speaker and get your message across better. That could have been definitely a lesson that I want to take. But always speak for impact. I had 700 people and 7 minutes of those 700 people on me. And I did not want to miss that. Either it was for a trophy or for any other reason. With that, I move it to the last segment. Did I miss something? I'm open for questions. And I'll be sharing this PPT if you all want. I'll stop the screen share first and you all can please come on video if it's possible. And yeah, Gangaram.
Hello, hi. Thank you very much for this wonderful session. First of all, I have 2 questions that I have been thinking throughout the session. First, about the speech drafting. I have always heard this, that a good speech has a 3 incidences, power of 3. But what about a speech which has only 1 storyline? Now in ballot, it doesn't give any marks for 3 stories. So I have heard, which one is the impactful? Is it we should go with the 3 stories or with only 1 story? And how do I make sure that which one is more impactful?
Generally, with regard to Toastmasters and the way they talk about power of 3, there's a scientific reason for why power of 3 works with regard to the impact. But there's no rule, like you mentioned, there's no rule that you have to have 3 stories. Here, you're talking of 3 differentiated or demarcated stories, but the same logic, even if it's within a story, even if it's 1 single story, if it's a narrative about 1 day, possibly of how 1 day passed on, you can demarcate that for the better soaking in of the audience about the message that you have. You can demarcate that as not just 1 6-minute incident, but the point that you're trying to prove with a story, with a setup that you have, the dilemma or the situation that you're providing, and the insight that you're offering. So these again, within the same story, these can be 3 different parts where you are showcasing a demarcation between moving from one part of the story to another. So that's using the power of 3, but there's no rule that you have to have 3 parts. Because you have less than 3, it becomes too elongated for someone to stay with you without this being one chunk, this being one chunk in it. And having more than 3 can be like an Instagram reel. There's so much happening, I might forget what's happening by the 5th story, or by the 5th or 6th element, I might forget what happened in the first one. And so in a 5 to 7 minute speech, it's better to have 3. I do these sessions where I'm talking of a magic in a minute, or a table topic idea where I'm talking of 2 minutes, where I say, no 3, please. In 2 minutes, 3 is too much. So depending on the time and what has generally worked in Toastmasters is a 5 to 7 minute speech, where it is ideal, where you can build the depth of each of these parts in 3 parts is what generally works. There is no rule but.
Okay, understood. Thank you. The question that I have is regarding the title. I have heard quite a times, I have seen speeches that they keep the title that one message, and the entire message is the title itself. Is it a recommended one, or is it something that you should give? One of the keynote speakers said in one of the sessions that if you keep the title as their entire speech objective, then why do I need to see your speech? I just hear the topic, I'll go home. So what is the right way of choosing a title which does not, it shows the entire message, or is it okay if we go ahead with keeping the objective as a title?
It's a choice that you make with regard to what is it and what kind of a speech that you want to deliver. What it does, when you say one line as an example, I had this speech, I don't know. I had this line, I don't know, in my intro, in the 3 parts of the story, and in the closing, the audience said, I don't know. What it does is creates a recall value. What it does is a deeper connect with the audience. And my message in itself was, I don't know. So today, if you talk of 2015, Dhananjay Chatterjee, Toastmaster World Championship speaker winning, and if I tell the line, I see something in you, I think half the audience might be recollecting or remembering that speech. I'm not sure about the depth or the stories in that speech, but the recall value is definitely there. And then comes your subjective choice, whether that is revealing too much. And sometimes I've seen speeches which have a very lame title, which is a missed opportunity also. It could be a missed opportunity where you're using or how you want to use that part of the speech, because that is also a part of your speech. There's a reason why it is being announced before you start speaking. People can preempt. Instead of, as an example, instead of the movie being titled Bahubali, the King, does it have the same feel? A generic name, Saat Khoon Maaf, 7 murders. Look at the difference. And again, you don't want to create create an element to get to that depth where it becomes so puzzling for the audience of what is coming up next. It's a choice that you make of what genre of speech that you're delivering, what is your style, what is your perception of the way your narrative of the speech is. The choice of topic or title can be according to that. It can be simple, straightforward. Special days is what I had. I did not create any buzz with the title. But equally, I created the buzz with my title for the humorous speech, which was pause. I just kept it as pause. And I used that also. I had one of the speaker whose title was, I love you. And imagine the contest chair was a lady. The first line that the male speaker said, I'm already married. So you see how you're using it is a choice that you can make. I hope that answers your question, Gangram.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions, anyone? Vamsi, any questions in the chat or anything I've missed?
Nope, we covered all the questions. Yeah,
I think there's some setting challenge where a lot of questions have come to me personally only. I'll just go through the chat.
Sure.
How to emotionally connect with the audience was asked at the start by Palak. The idea is you plant and deepen the story with the details. That is where they can see and become a part of your story and feel like, okay, they're sitting with you, like a friend who's sitting and listening to your story. You'll have to plant elements of waves and make it conversational for them to feel a part of your speech. The more you keep it conversational and inculcate elements of emotion and the depth, the better will be the connect with the audience. Okay. How to impact or connect
So
the
sorry
audience
to,
with. Yes,
am I
go ahead,
audible?
Palak.
So sorry
Go ahead.
to cut you. Yeah, but you said not to write the details. I feel like then the speech gets too lengthy and we miss out on the power of three. I'm a person who uses the power of three, but
Okay.
when I go into the details, then how will I jump to the next three? It becomes like I quite a kind of rush till the end.
Okay. I would suggest you to watch the speech of uh, Toastmaster Cyril Jr., who was the champion last year. His entire idea was about his surname being changed and how he embraced himself with that. So the details doesn't have to be elongating the speech, but providing context in which your audience can see further deeper about who you are. Not the flair of words and the descriptive part of it, but the details which will help them get a deeper connect with who you are as an individual, or what the point that you're trying to say, or the story that you're sharing. That is where it makes a difference. Because when I heard that speech from Cyril Jr., who won that year, I said, I can tell this same idea in 2 minutes. And yet, when I look back at the finer details of how he played with the words, played with the emotions, provided that connect with every detail that he was talking about the journey, it is where I resonated with that message. So I think that is where the entire, it's not just about using jargon or flair of words that you have to elongate the story, but to create the depth with important elements which will add to that one story of the three stories that you're trying to add. So more of wordplay and balance.
Can you give me an example of this from like any of your speeches?
Okay, in this speech, special days again, I could have said I was scared my father was in ICU. Instead of that, the line that I used was, waiting outside the ICU, I was rattled inside and numb outside. You see, the feeling that generally people go through, that they're numb and they are not able to speak, they're not able to comprehend what is happening. I could have said I was scared my father would die. But this descriptive element with this choice of wordplay possibly creates a deeper, it evokes a deeper emotion from the audience. Is what I can think of right now as a sample, a suggestion which I can say. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you so much.
Sabiha, go ahead.
So Rahul, you said words, the choice of choosing words properly is very important. Now my question might be for beginners. If they forget the lines, if they forget those words, which are very important, how do they continue that speech?
Very interesting and very impressive question, Sabiha. There's a difference between a speech delivery and a performance. Imagine you are delivering or performing a song and you have an entire band or a background karaoke going on and you're singing to that. The audience knows that you have missed something when it's a performance. I always tell this to all my mentees. The speech draft that you have is a draft that only you have. The audience doesn't have a draft and is observing what you are delivering to what was written. And so, like our childhood challenges, where we try to mug up and get those lines and deliver as is. And so suddenly, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth line I forgot. I don't know what is coming up at sixth line. But if it's internalized, you know the theme of these stories. There will be instances where you could forget the words or the exact punchline which you thought of. There could be instances of that. And it's natural with the entire nerves that get over us, with all the things which are happening. It's natural for it to happen. So in that point in time, it's for you to understand the theme of that speech that you're delivering, rather than the line to line of what you want to deliver. Because when you go by line, fifth line missing, you can't remember what the sixth line is. But if it's a storyline, you know what comes next. Right now, as an example, if I ask you to narrate the hare and tortoise story, I believe each one of the audience will be able to tell that. Why? Because you are in sync with the narrative. You are not syncing with the line. The hare started to run. It rushed, and then it paused. Then it turned back and saw the tortoise was nowhere to be seen. Then it was tired. It thought it'll take some rest. I'm able to narrate it without even the last time I might have read the textbook of this story would be 25 years back. But I'm able to tell it, right? Because I've internalized the story. I've internalized the idea of what I want to deliver. Would be great if you can deliver exactly what you prepared, but that should not be the limiting factor. And one trick for that is only you have your draft. Only you know what you prepared for. Thank you, Sabia. What is the thin line between great gestures and overdoing gestures? Again, very subjective. There's a difference between drama, theatrics, and using body language or vocal variety to enhance it. The thin line here, I would feel, for you as an individual, when you're doing it as theatrics, you would know that it is not who you are. While there are some individuals who are by nature very dramatic, and for them that comes naturally. With regard to the marking, the ballot, there have been umpteen number of debates in Toastmasters about how over the recent past it has become more about theatrics and performance on stage more than the content or the meat of the speech of what is creating an impact. Subjective, but it's your call. Ultimately, what I feel is work on yourself in a way where, as a public speaker, when you're getting better, it is a natural extension of who you are on stage and who you are off the stage. A sync between that is what will help people relate to you. Otherwise, like in drama, like in theater, you know when the person is on stage, you know this is this person here. Tomorrow when he's sitting beside me, he'll be silent or he'll be a certain kind, which is not that. The ultimate objective is to learn and improve. I might not become like a speaker with such accent or other elements, which you see maybe in a foreign language speaker who's a native English speaker. And they have their strengths. We have our strengths. We can learn by observation and improving ourselves, but we don't have to become that. So that's a subjective call. I would say the line between what is overdoing and what is appropriate. You would get the verdict of that from the judges that you get for that contest. Yes, Gangaram.
I'll ask last question from my end.
Sure.
So we have contest at club level, area level, division level, and then district level. What do you suggest is the best way? I have seen so many speakers repeat the same club at this, like I have done it myself at club level, area level, division level. Most of the time, audience is Toastmasters. So they already know my speech. They already know the purpose that I'm doing. And most of the time, judges are also going to be the same. Those who are at club, area, and division. You never know.
Possibly. Are you listening?
So what do you recommend, to write a new speech at every level or to continue with the same speech? Because I already put enough efforts in it, but it might lose the attention from the audience because you are repeating it again.
With regard to, I'll tell you, this speech which I delivered was the same from the club level to the district level. For that matter, even in the previous year, I had the same speech which I lost at I think area level. But the point that I want to make here is that how can you make it better? And you losing interest is something which is the challenge here. The audience will have those elements or those people in the audience who have already heard the speech. The funny part is ISC is still reasonable. Imagine someone laughing at the same joke that you cracked in the humorous speech 4 times. The 5th time they'll be crying over it. They won't be laughing over it. But the point is, for you as an individual, if the contest, see, a contest winning is something which is of a pride. In your club, don't go ahead with repeating the same speech with multiple things, the same speech multiple times without a purpose. But in a contest, if your intent is working on winning, there's a lot of refinement and fine tuning that goes into the finer details of that one speech, which can be used and improvised as you move forward, improved as you move forward to the next level, is what I feel.
Okay, thanks.
The audience will keep changing. The audience will keep changing. Technically speaking, the special day speech, as an example, the Jubileance event happened with 700 people. Of that, possibly there will be 50 people or 60 people who would have heard my speech. So that was a different story. But I still had to keep in mind that there's a big amount of audience who doesn't know the message that I want to share. And possibly if they love my speech, if they love the idea, we go watch movies also 2-3 times. A 7-minute speech is still worthy if it's worthy of listening to. Yeah, Palak.
Yes, sir. So I've been listening to this term narrative, and it's something very new for me. But what I could conclude is that is it actually the feeling that we are trying to bring from the people, or is there any difference? Like, what exactly is narrative when you're talking about
Narrative is a
speech?
construct of your message. As an example, today, if I want to deliver a speech on banning plastic, one person could use the idea of facts and figures and how you're coming to the conclusion that plastic ban is important. Or another person could come up with an emotional story about how he saw a child choking because of the presence of microplastics in their lungs. Another could come up with another storyline. The point is, how are you, based on your assessment of the audience and how people get this message across, that they'll stop using plastic? About narrative, I'll tell you a simple thing. We all don't like the charges of how much popcorn or cold drinks are being charged in the movie halls. Yes? We keep telling it or we keep venting it out somewhere that this is so bad. And yet there was one person who wrote a tweet, that time tweet, with a simple message that he went for a movie. He was, I think, a news channel person. He went for a movie and his, I don't remember the exact wordings, 450 rupees for the ticket, 300 for the popcorn, 150 for the cold drink. In all, spending for one person for a movie, 860 rupees, equates to less than an annual subscription for Amazon Prime. No wonder people have stopped going to movies, movie theaters. We all are telling the same thing. Why is popcorn so costly, or why do we spend so much? But look at how it was presented. The construct of the message is what differentiates all of us. You look at a love story. Every year there are 50 love story movies, but everyone's construct and the way they are getting to that message of hope, kindness. You see all these ideas which we decided on, the topic that you can choose. It's not the end result of peace is important or kindness is important. How you're getting there and how appealing can it be for the audience to send across that message hitting them hard is what the objective is. That choice of how you're creating that is what I refer to as narrative that you're creating. Answers, Palak?
So is it something like wordplay, right?
No, not wordplay is a very, for the same thing, you can have a different wordplay. It's the construct of how you're getting to the point, how you're getting your idea across. You could have heard speeches on kindness. Go ahead and search for kindness speeches. You'll find 10 speeches, but each one's approach is what differentiates them. And you'll be impressed with one, you'll be not that impressed with another. So that kind of an approach is what I'm looking at it when you're seeing it as a narrative of how you're creating that speech. Yep. Any other questions, anyone? We are already at 9:35.
Yeah, to Rahul, I
Yes,
got
sir.
a
Go ahead,
question.
sir.
You had mentioned that the speech can be repeated, and it with people who had already heard. So I can narrate here. I had joined Toastmasters about 5 years ago, which I had heard the speech in the area level, the club level, area level, division level, and again the same speech was repeated twice, thrice, 3 times in a year or so. So I have heard these speeches repeatedly, but I don't find any change or the message what is being conveyed. So being a passionate Toastmaster who have been attending regularly in all the events, we can easily make out that speech was already heard. That doesn't make an impact or the difference what you are going to deliver. So what is your opinion on that?
Just hope that you're not the judge.
I was
because that will
was
definitely
not
have an
judge.
impact.
I
Because as a
was in
judge,
the
what will
audience.
happen? As a judge, what could happen is that there's a bias which could be created, that you can preempt what is coming, or you can already be possibly comparing, while your assessment of the judgment of the ballot could be comparison of what was delivered earlier or what it is being versus what it is being delivered now, rather than absolutely what is being delivered now. We have judges training, but still. But the point is, there will always be ideas which will be repeated. You have to see, as an individual who's delivering the same speech again, have you worked on improving yourself? Because what happens is that there's a very high risk of playing from the scratch on a new speech altogether and testing that, trying that, and in the process losing out at a different level or in a different year or whatever you want to call. So there's that risk. As a contestant, I would still want to play the safe game and see how I can still do it better. And that risk will always be there. So as an example, from the club level, you have your entire team of supporters coming into the area or the division level. You'll always have that kind of a challenge of some people in the audience kind of finding that as a repeat. So I hope it's a subjective call. And I would say, as an individual, as a contestant, for me, I would want to play the safe game and see how I can still do better in that speech.
Okay, but repeated for about 4 years or 5 years, it doesn't make sense. That's what I believe.
Then I would say no. 4 or 5 years is a very long time for you to play it safe. Then it's more than playing it safe. It's the cushion that you have created, that only this speech is going to be the winning speech for me.
So because the speeches I heard when I joined, it was repeated even this year, this current year also.
Possible.
So that's all. Thank you.
Yeah. Padma, you had a question?
Yeah, like how you as a contestant would not lose interest in the same speech, because I lose interest when I repeat the same speech at the second level. So how you hang on or add the enthusiasm or interest for the same speech?
One is improvement with regard to working on the finer details on further improving that. Apart from that, like I told you, you have to have that deep innate desire for that message that you're giving, rather than it just being a speech which you're going to deliver for some contest, or it being just a message that you're casually going ahead, that this is a good concept I'm good in. You have to believe in that. You have to, and that's the reason you'll see there'll be many stories of your life when you are with your friends or when you are meeting new people. You'll always be repeating the same story with everyone and not feel dull or not feel lost out because you're saying the same story. And with many people, it's the same joke as well.
Yeah.
But still, you don't stop laughing at the end of the joke that you are cracking, which you already cracked 10 times.
Yeah.
But it's about your interest in it. And obviously, if you have a new audience, even if there's 20% of the audience which is new and which has not heard that speech, you always have to respect that set of an audience which is there to listen to you. So I feel I use that as a motivation, because I do not just in the speeches element is different. I deliver these public speaking, not public speaking, but in general, my living life programs which I do. There are a few set of programs which I've delivered around 50 times, 60 times. And yet, every time I get onto stage, I know that this is something important for them, and I'll bring my heart out of that for that audience. More than what I think, it's for the audience that I want to give the best for.
Okay.
Yeah. Mayuri.
Yeah, hi, Rahul. I would just wanted to ask from you with respect to time. You know, the minute the green card comes up, we sort of start getting rattled about it. And even though we've prepared and practiced, no matter what, when we're on stage, so even with time, this call to action or the message that we want our audience to take away, is there a particular time in a speech of 5 to 7 minutes when you would say, this is the point where you should now start talking about the takeaway? So with respect to particularly time is my question.
Okay. The way I work it out is with regard to obviously targeting 6.5 minutes for my speeches mostly. And depending on a good day, I'm happy mood, I'll go to 7. A bad mood or a adrenaline rush, I might close at 6 minutes. But what I do definitely is that I have these markers in my speech draft where once after practice with the vocal variety or practicing and all those things, I put markers that this is the line which has to come at the green flag. Because until then you don't have a assessment. But this is a story which has to start by the green line, by the green flag. And I know from that marker how much time it is coming for me to close. And accordingly, I adjust the lines and I keep this marker in my mind very clear. That if I'm very far off from that, I'll see how I can improvise there and cut short the detail of the story and move forward. Or I know that it's only green and I've already come to the closing. Accordingly, use and pace myself based on the marker. I would definitely suggest Toastmasters to have a marker for every minute, but obviously they won't do that for me. But yeah, I use that for the green, yellow, and red. I use that accordingly, that I have this line, specifically a line which I know at green I should be here ideally with a 6.5 target.
And the message that we want to send, does it come at the green at 5 or does it actually start at yellow? When would you rather suggest?
For me, mostly because I do not have a very elaborate closing. Because I believe my stories or the depth of the story which I've created are the message in itself. Mostly my closing is not more than 15 to 20 seconds.
So it's after the yellow
after the yellow, after the yellow. And even if yellow, I can play around with the depth of how much I know that if I start at red also.
Correct. There's still 1.5 minutes even after yellow.
So in that sense, I play around with that. With regard to my, because mostly for the closings, if you are having to explain all the things that you have said, it means your speech was flawed. The stories didn't have the depth to sell the message that you want to. And so for me, closing is often the punchlines or the single takeaway that I want the audience to leave. So the special day speech had these 2 lines at the end. It's a crime to have that line which I told. It's a crime. And then moving forward to the stage in the center and asking them the question, 2 weeks from now is Father's Day. What are you doing?
What are you doing? Okay.
That's it. So that was like, including the walk steps and all those things, I had calculated that to be 20-21 seconds. So I had that in mind. And so mostly my speeches, I target 6.5, but I play around with it and make sure by the time the red comes, it's done.
Okay, great. Thanks.
So that's a strategy that's worked for me. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Vasundhara. Vasundhara, are you there? Else Vikram, go ahead.
Yeah, Rahul. So Rahul, based on the years of speeches that I've seen from everyone, me including, and others also. So I find that if my speech title is, let's say, example, words are powerful is my speech title. So what will happen is, if I'm using the speech title 5 to 6 times in my speech, right? Words are powerful. This is blah blah blah. Words are powerful. Blah blah blah. Words are powerful. Blah blah blah. Normally, should we, as a speaker, should we devise a speech in such a way that we don't use the title so many times in the speech, or should we hide the idea of the speech till the end and reveal the climax at the end? Okay,
I think
I find that people who have used words are powerful. That title of the speech, 5 6 7 in the speech, they don't make it to top 3 or top 2, depending on. Of course, judging is important, but what do you recommend for me as a speaker? Should I reveal the climax, the idea of the speech towards the end of the speech, or words are powerful, blah 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 blah, 6 7 times? Does it make sense in the speech?
Okay, so with regard to, again, like I told you, it's a strategy and it's very subjective. 6 7 times is too much. First thing, 6 7 times using even the title is too much. In general, what I've observed for people who use, this is called the anchor line, where they use the anchor line with the idea that by the time you have said the anchor line the 3rd time, the 4th time the audience is preempting, and that becomes your power. As a speaker, my power is to get into the audience mind where they're saying what I want them to say. And so 6 times is too long, and just repeating for the sake of you planting it is a different thing from using it as a strategy that this is my message. Words are powerful. If I've created that as a message, and then by the time you are coming to the conclusion or the 3rd end story or the 4th end story, you are asking them, what do you think is powerful? Words are, is what they say. So that's a strategy. But if it is not coming and only you are the one who's going to say that 6 times, then it's a flawed strategy. That becomes too much, and people start thinking, okay, why is he repeating the same thing so many times? The strategy of anchor line works where you are planting it in the audience and you're going to use that. You're going to use that where you don't have to say it. The audience will say it, and at the end of maybe 4 years, 5 years, people will still remember this line of yours. So I just observed this thing in Dhananjay Hitachi's speech. I don't know what I see. I see something in you. It was used only 3 times. And it was used in the closing. And that's where he comes to the audience and he comes and tells, I see something in you, but I don't know what it is. And that becomes a line for a long duration. It sticks for a long duration. Possibly that's a purpose.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Khushi?
you. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, hi. Just a very small question. Actually, it's very similar to Toastmaster Mayuri's question. I just wanted to know that I have observed that, mostly in ISC, when we tell a story on an incident, the audience, there are chances that the audience get bored because the incident is too long or too elaborated. So, what is the perfect time frame if we are narrating an incident or a story? Like, should it be of 2 minutes or 3 minutes? What's the perfect time frame for that?
If it's generally a single storyline which is moving, then if you like, they're parts of the same story, then it should not go more than 3.5 to 4 minutes, is what I feel. Because then after the story, you're coming to the debrief. You're coming to the insight of what is the lesson or what is it that you want the audience to do. But if it is 3 stories of different time frames, so one story you're mentioning about maybe a childhood instance, one is your professional instance, and one is your friendship or something which is there. Either disconnected, in a sense, the theme is same, but the stories are disconnected. You can have on average, I think, 1.5 minutes for each story. That gives us in all 4.5 to 5 minutes to build our case of the purpose of our speech, and then unleash the final takeaway for the audience in the 5th minute.
Okay, and
Again,
just one,
subjective. Just letting you know, again, subjective.
yeah, and one more thing that like what should be the opening for humorous? I've seen, people tend to make, the audience laugh in the first 5 to 10 seconds. So for ISC, what should it be?
They say everything should be a mix. So as an example, there will be individual personality traits. As an individual, I am not that humorous, but it doesn't mean that I have to plant humor consistently in a speech. They say if in a humorous speech, you look at the world championship for the last 5-6 years, you look at the speeches, there will be some who did not have more than 2 or 3 instances of laughter of a twist where they evoked laughter, while there were some who had a evoke this laughter thing every 30 seconds. It's on how you are as an individual and how comfortable you are in building that up. If you don't have that person and you're trying to force it on yourself, it could backfire. So in general, I feel for the humor part of it, you can have 3 or 4 instances which are planted so that even if 1 or 2 fails of that, you still have had a part of where you've lightened the environment for the audience. And humor doesn't mean that people are laughing out loud. It can also be just a smile or a twist in emotion of what you were sharing, and then it changed. So, yeah, Ekta.
Okay, thank you so much.
Adding to Khushi's questions, she asked about what is the time length of the story. My question is, after how many seconds do we begin the story? Like for the introduction, what is the appropriate time? 30 seconds or less than that?
I generally have it in 15 to 20 seconds, where after 20 or maximum 25 seconds, I have contest share, Toastmasters and guest line. But my recent observation that I've seen in a lot of these winning speeches is that that doesn't come until 50-55 seconds. The setup is used so deeply and strongly that people are into it in the setup. You look at a lot of these speeches where contest share or something like that comes up, individual differences where I've seen sometimes contest share coming up like I said, 20-25 seconds, and sometimes at 1 minute, 10 seconds also. So as in the Mohammad Katani speech, to what I remember, the idea of contest share, the opening being finished, came at almost 50-55 seconds, because the entire setup of cigarette, setup with regard to he telling a lie or the statements that he made and the entire context that he put was for almost 50-55 seconds. So you have to judge based on your speech of how much is appropriate and how much is elongated. Yep. Yes. Any other questions before? I think last question. We are already at 10:50.
Yeah. Last question. We can wind up here.
Okay. I'll just take it up
Okay,
from.
I will shoot the last question.
Go ahead, Vamsi.
What are your thoughts about judges?
This year they were very good people.
Because
But see, like I've always said, with regard to judging each one's how much our training that we talk of taking off the biases and all those things, there's invariably an element of personal bias, unconscious one, which comes in. And there's a complete training which is provided to how you can take off, or how can you actually judge, not comparing between two speakers also, and giving your own assessment, and then not moving back to change the score of another speaker because you felt this one was better or worse off. There's a training for that completely. I feel these are contests. Ultimately, what I see Toastmasters as, in a world of 7 billion people or 8 billion people, we are 3 lakh people. And contest, how much so you give weightage to it, or the importance that you're giving to it, we are still far insignificant and smaller crowd that we're talking of winning. The real charm of what you can achieve with your public speaking skills is in the world beyond. This is just maybe one element where you are getting that add-on push with winning or without winning, the element of testing your skills in a place where you cannot fail. Not in the judgment, but in a case where you are learning with every opportunity that you're getting. So we are still, so as an example, if you are talking of district 126, I might be pounding my chest with regard to that I'm a winner of district 126. At the end of it, we were 1,500 people or 1,400 people. So still, not that I'm not proud of it, but the fact is, we're still talking of 1,400 people only. And the world is such big. Hyderabad is such big. Of what I wish to accomplish is such a big goal that I have for myself. 1,400 is not the crowd that I wish to end with impressing with. So that's how I look at it. A good accomplishment, a happy one, but yet this is not the end of it. This is rather a start, or looking at yourself of using this learnings that you have in the real world. That is where the real power will lie. Because I've seen, I've come across one individual who was devastated because he did not win a contest. And his entire definition of self-worth was hinging on the result. While I told him, you're talking of a club level or area level where you're competing with 20, 30, 40 people among all the people that you're talking, and you're feeling that your self-worth is based on this, is a flawed definition that you have. After winning at district level also, I don't have that kind of an image that, okay, this is what is proving my worth. It is the other way around. You keep doing your work, keep growing, and beyond the world is where you can create your real world, real impact, which you're aspiring for. So, yep. Good people, Vamsi, for this year, I would say definitely. The judges were good.
So,
with that, over to you, Vamsi. Back to you.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is because when Venkatraman put the question, like, how do you feel listening to the same speech again and again? I felt on the other side of the bucket, being the judge from starting from club to all the way to the district. And I can't even remember, okay, once that thing comes on subconscious mind, suddenly I feel I may heard this speech somewhere. Okay, let it be. Let's focus on this today's what is happening. And after the contest, I start thinking, where did I heard this? And some of my colleagues or someone, they come and say, you are the judge from, I don't know from which stage it started. Now this is district level. And you can't even count, let it be. Because that many times doing the judging role, we feel that. But the thing is, at that point of time, yeah, I don't know about Rahul. I don't know who is on the stage. There is one person coming on the stage, and let me focus on exactly what I am getting today. That's it. Remaining all are out of the mind. That way, we can give a fair judgment, and we can see, and we can, depending on that, also the members also feel like yes, the fair judgment is given. I got second, which means there is something I need to improve. I got first, so what is the next stage of this? So that we learn from that and we move ahead. Thank you so much, Rahul, for a wonderful session today. And I think we got more and more insights than what even we thought of we could get from this session. Kudos to you. And a small token of appreciation from our side. Let me share my screen. My laptop is a bit slow. It's absolutely fine. Meanwhile, I request everyone to kindly switch on your videos
group
from the
photograph.
stand of the speech.
Take
We
a
can have a
take a
group
group
photograph.
photograph, Vamsi. Yeah.
Yeah, before these people on their cams, let me share my screen and give a small token of appreciation to my speaker.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Rahul.
much, Rahul.
Thank you, Vamsi. Thank you, Vikram. I hope you found the worth
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and the value that I provided here today.
Yeah. Yeah, and also Vamsi, thanks a lot for being the moderator and anchor for the session. Thanks for Vamsi. Thank you for your valuable work, and both Rahul also. And audience members of Toastmasters, if you want a recording of the session, let your director know, or you can ping me separately. I can share you the recording. Thanks a lot. So So if you can, if you
If you
can
don't
take a group.
on the cams, whatever pictures I am getting here, I will take it. After that, I have to add you in the graphical and
But
canvas and other kind of stuff.
did you take the
So
picture,
you better,
Vamsi? Group picture?
yeah. Still, people are on their cams. So I request everyone to kindly switch on your cameras. No need to worry what dress and other things you are wearing. Just see me. I just came from jungle. Okay, so you can on your cameras and have a bright smile. Otherwise, you will get candid pics. Definitely for sure.
So take a group picture, 3, 2, 1. And wishing
Yeah.
you all the very best for your contest, upcoming contest season, all the members of Toastmasters.
Thank you.
Vamsi, done? Group picture?
Vamsi, you shared a feedback link. You have shared something already? Okay. So yeah,
It's done.
if you have seen it in the chat, do share your feedback, or there was something